being here has taught me like it is what it is, and the way you react to it is what your experience will be.
Welcome to the Melanated Files. In this series, we highlight and share the stories of black people from across the globe. Remember to subscribe to this channel for weekly videos and also follow us on social media for regular updates. Let's get into the interview. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Melanated Files. My name is Ranzo and I'm your host, and today we're joined by AJ and we're in South Korea, right? Seoul, somewhere close to the city hall right now, and we're gonna get into his story right now. So tell me, AJ, why South Korea?
I came to South Korea mainly because I wanted to get to know my mom's side of the family. So I'm half black, half Korean. But growing up, I never came to Korea. It wasn't until 2015 that I convinced my mom to come on a trip with me. And so we came together and I got to meet my grandmother and my aunt and her 3 kids. But I didn't get to meet my uncles. And my oldest uncle has 2 kids. My younger uncle doesn't have any kids. So at that time, I didn't get to meet them. So I decided to come to get to know them better and also to help out with my grandmother a little bit more because she's getting pretty old now.
Okay. So some people will say that your Korean features are very, very strong. So
yes.
Tell me about that, because I'm pretty sure you encounter those type of conversations. What's that like?
So I never, like no one ever assumes that I'm black or Korean. Everybody assumes that I'm Filipino.
Okay.
Filipino, Indonesian, Samoan, some kind of islander or Southeast Asian ethnicity. But so back in the US, I grew up with my dad and my stepmother. My stepmom is from Dakar in Senegal, but her family's from Cape Verde and everything, so just a huge mix. But grew up with that side of my family, so I never, like, when I was really young, I never really paid too much attention to my Korean side. It wasn't until I was in high school that I really started to become more interested in my other half. And I have always been in constant communication with my mom, seeing her on weekends and everything like that.
Oh, so she lives in the States, right?
She lives in the States, correct. I've always, when I was younger, I always just identified as African American.
Okay.
And never put Asian or anything on anything that I had to fill out. Because there also wasn't the option to do that. You had to choose one.
Okay.
And it wasn't until recently, more recently, that there's biracial option, but before it was just you had to choose one: white, African American, Hispanic, or Asian, Pacific Islander.
So when you tell people that you're mixed with Korean, like, what's the response like? Or mixed with black, like, what's the response
Most
like?
people on both sides are very shocked. If on the black side, when I tell black people that I'm black and Korean, they'll say, "Oh, you're black? Like I didn't know you were black. I wouldn't have assumed that." They were like, "I knew some kind of Asian, but I didn't know black." And then when I tell Koreans that I'm half Korean, the same thing. They're like, "Whoa, you're Korean?" Like, so no one ever assumes that I'm either one. So I think it's pretty funny.
So you came to Korea, right? So what do you do in Korea right now?
Right now, I'm an English teacher, and I teach at an elementary public school.
So what has that experience been like?
So right now in the public school, I love working in the public school. My co-teachers are pretty good. And a lot of my students don't know that I'm half Korean. So they're always asking me, like, "Teacher, how do you understand Korean? How do you know Korean so well?" But I fake it, and I'm just like, I don't know, I don't understand Korean. But then they'll ask me in class a question in Korean, and then I'll answer it right away in English. So with them, I don't use Korean. I let the co-teachers do all the interpreting and everything like that. But if it's just a quick thing that I can answer, then I'll respond in English. But I really like working with the kids. Before I came to Korea, I was working with kids. So it was just a very easy transition.
So you were teaching in the States?
I worked at a community center. And I worked in the elementary program. I was the director for summer camp, winter camp, after school program. So I was with kids all year round. So I used a lot of what I learned there to come here. And it's actually funny because a lot of the Korean that I've learned in Korea has been like just listening to my kids talk to each other. So
this question is coming from an interview I did with another half Korean guy, right? He's saying that Koreans don't really understand the concept of
Yes.
someone being bicultural,
Yes.
biracial. So when you try to communicate that, what type of conversation do you encounter?
So usually people are, like I said, people are pretty shocked when they find out, but I don't know if it's just because they're not used to meeting half Koreans or if it's just because I'm darker and I don't really look that Korean. It just goes, I feel like it goes over their head or one ear out the other. So one thing that I find that used to bother me a lot, not so much now, is that if I tell someone I'm half Korean, later when we're hanging out, they'll ask me, do you like kimchi or do you like this kind of food? And I say, yeah, I do like it. And they're very shocked, like, whoa, you like kimchi? You know what kimchi is? And it's like, yeah, dude, I've probably been eating kimchi just as long as you have. Like, since I was a kid, I've been eating kimchi, Korean food. So that's one thing I've noticed. They're not used to it. So just for someone who grew up in the United States, they assume I don't really know anything about Korean culture. Even my students, I've told my students that I'm half Korean, and the older ones are pretty good with understanding, like, oh, okay, your mom's Korean. And like, I'll show them a picture of my mom. They're like, oh, your mom's really Korean. She's Korean.
That's not the
But if they don't see the picture of my mom, they're just like, oh, and it kind of just goes over their head, like he's half Korean, like what? So yeah, my younger kids, they don't really get it.
You show them like the picture of your dad and say, okay, this is my dad, this is my mom. Do you do that?
Yes, I do that. And I did that the very first day that I started working there, and they were kind of just like, wow, that's cool, and then they just forget about it. And they're like, AJ teacher's American, so.
So what do you like the most about Korea?
What I like most about Korea is, well, two things. I will say about Korea that I really like is I really love the traditional culture of things. And by that, like if you go to the Korean folk village and you see like the performers with the drums and the ribbons on the head, I really think those are really cool aspects of Korean culture. And like just seeing those performances, and like it just gets me like really super pumped about it and everything like that. So I really like that about Korea. The food is good, but as for myself being in Korea, one thing that I would say is the best thing for me is that I've grown so much as a person in ways that I didn't think that I could. So yes, I have family in Korea, but I didn't grow up with them. I didn't grow up around them, so they're still pretty like distant from me. There's one cousin I'm really close to, so I can tell him everything, but everyone else is kind of just like, I feel like there's this void in between us. So not having my support system that I have back home in Korea has really taught myself to look inward and be that support system for myself, and have more confidence in myself. Taught me I need to actually practice self-love and self-care, like treat yourself. So definitely I'm grateful to be in Korea and be able to see myself growing in those kinds of ways.
So what do you try to do to bridge the gap? Have you made attempts to try to connect with the family members?
Yes.
What happens when you try that?
So when I first got here, I think it was probably a few times a month I would contact my cousins, my aunt, my uncles, asking them to hang out, or if they're free, if I could go over and see them and whatnot.
Do they speak English?
No. Only the one cousin that I'm really close to, he speaks English, but everyone else speaks Korean.
So when you're talking to them, you speak in Korean?
Yes, okay. I have to use Korean. And so they say things like they're busy, and I understand because Korea, pretty similar to Japan, has like the work mentality. So for a while I was just like, okay, they're busy, they can hang out. But what really started to bother me was that I would tell them like, let me know when you are free, but I would never get that message or that call like, hey, we're free now. And so I took it really hard, and I think it was partly because I had that expectation of them, like we're family, but they don't have the same definition of family as I do, of how family should treat each other. So, and in part, it was kind of my fault for having that expectation of them when they maybe felt like it wasn't an obligation of theirs. And so, I kind of stopped hitting them up as often. And now I mostly see my aunt and her kids for holidays like Chuseok or Seollal, like the Lunar New Year. But other than that, I don't really see them. And my cousin, since I'm close with my cousin on my uncle's side, if I go to his house, he lives with my uncle, so I see them pretty often.
So has the relationship improved at all with those family members? Have you communicated this to your mother? Like,
of course I have.
What kind of advice did she impart?
So when I first came to Korea, I was dead set on not meeting my uncles because when I came in 2015, they chose not to meet me. And so when I came here, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna meet them. But my mom was like, no, she's like, those are your uncles, they're your family. You have to like at least meet them once and try to get to know them. So that's kind of what I did. And the reason why they didn't want to meet me was my mom doesn't really have a good relationship with her family. And even my mom's siblings together, they don't really have a very good relationship.
Is it because like she was with a black guy? Was that a thing?
It's part of it, part of the reason. But I think just growing up, even it goes a lot into it. But a lot of it comes, I hate to say it, but it comes from my grandmother. She's very, I want to say, not manipulative, but some things she says, I'm just like,
She's still around.
Yeah, she's still around. So just some of the things she says, I'm just like, okay, that's kind of way over the top, or that's
in terms of
uncalled for.
Relations, or
just about things she says about her kids, things she says about like other family members, my mom, my uncles, things like that. It's kind of just like, okay, those are pretty hurtful things. And so I've kind of taken a step back. And so I'd say with my grandmother, my relationship has improved, but now that she has shown me her true colors, I'm not going to sit here and try to repaint those. So I just take a step back and I take her in doses.
Have you found that you're more close now to your Korean side, or
Definitely.
have you gone deeper?
Yes, definitely. I feel more in touch, more connected to it, because I've learned so much about it, and I've learned a deeper understanding outside of food and how I should treat my elders. Like now I know how to navigate within Korean society in Korea, not just like I'm trying to think of the word in English, gyopo mindset, like Korean American mindset. It's still pretty different from Korean mindset. And
what do you think is the main difference?
The American Western mindset is more open, more liberal, less conservative. And when you have a problem with someone, whether they're older than you or younger than you or the same age as you, you tell them. You tell them, I don't like that you did this because of this. It's like, so I would like to work on that and move forward from it. But in Korea, you can't really do that.
If someone is older, you can't?
If someone is older, you kind of just have to take it because that's how they are. It's a respect thing.
Even if they're like very toxic or abusive.
If you call them out on it, it's disrespectful.
Really?
Yes, it's very disrespectful.
Well, that's very different from the West.
So, like things my grandmother has said, I've tried to word it in ways it's like, oh, try to understand the other point of view, or like, oh no, they're not all that bad, like saying it like that. But if I say, you can't just say that about your kids, you can't say that about your grandkids, she'll be like, who are you talking to? Yeah. Since I am half and half, I try to be half and half, if that makes sense. I try to balance both. I don't try to have preference over like one over the other. I did grow up in America, so of course I kind of lean more towards that mindset. But as far as like if I'm hanging out with my American friends, I will act very American. But if I'm hanging out with like my Korean friends or like my family in Korea, I will try to follow the Korean norms so that I'm not disrespectful or come off as the typical outsider or foreigner. Because I do understand Korean culture, and people who do understand that I'm half Korean expect that of me, to exhibit that behavior, which is, I kind of like it. It has its ups and downs. So I like it when Koreans see me as a Korean, and I like it when Americans see me as American. So, but there's also the people in America who see me as Asian, just Asian, and then there are people in Korea who just see me as American. So.
How do you identify yourself?
I identify as half and half. And so when people ask me like, what do you identify as? I say I'm black and Korean. And they say, well, if you had to choose one, and I say I choose both. It's like I'm not going to choose one over the other because I am both.
I'm like, why would you ask a question like
I've been
that?
asked so many times, like if you had to choose one or the other. Yeah.
Is it more in America or more here that ask that question?
More in America, if I had to choose one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you like the least about being here?
What I like the least. It seems pretty like superficial, but people's spatial awareness in Korea is so bad.
I've heard that a lot.
Oh, so you'll be walking down the sidewalk and you'll have a good distance between you and the person in front of you, but maybe you're like looking this way or looking that way, but you'll catch it out the corner of your eye, but like the person will just stop right in front of you and they don't try to move out of the way. And so like you almost like trip over someone, or like at the subway station or the train station, it's like people walking in and out and they don't really pay attention to like if someone's coming from this way or someone's coming from that way, and they will like there's every day that I'm walking I almost run into someone, or I do run into someone. And but Korea, the personal bubble in America I think is 18 centimeters or 18 inches. I don't remember what the measurement is. Yeah, your personal space. I've learned to be this stone cold person, and I will bump into people. It's like move or be moved. I guess mindset wise, the thing I like the least is people's ignorance in Korea to things outside of Korea. And it's not, I'm not blaming them. It's just because Americans are kind of similar. Everywhere you go, it's pretty similar. People focus on where they're at and where they grew up and whatnot. But it's just after, like, I feel like in this day and age where Google is so easily accessible, there are just some things where I feel like you should at least have some knowledge about. Even myself, if I don't know, I will admit to someone like, oh, I don't know about that. But in Korea, it's like ignorant to where things like, okay, I've been asked multiple times, like, what do Americans do for housewarming parties? And I say, oh, we go to someone's house and we give them things that they might need for the house, like toilet paper or paper towels or something like that. And both of the people who have asked me were shocked. They were like, we do that in Korea. And I was just like, oh, no way. Like, having human decency to get someone what they might need for their house. What? Like, so it's like things like that where I'm just like, okay, like,
it's normal.
It's normal, and they make it seem like it's like this huge thing. So I don't know. I have been, and this only happened to me one time, but it's this side of Korea about the ignorance that really gets to me, is that I have been kicked out of a bar before for being a foreigner.
Really?
Yes.
So how did they detect that? Were you admitted inside?
So I walked in, there was no like ID check or anything. So I went in, and the thing was I had been to this bar multiple times before. And one of my friends from Colorado was visiting, and so
Black guy.
She's Native American.
Okay.
So we went in, and the guy who worked there, who I have spoken to, ordered drinks from before, was just like, in Korean, told me, oh, sorry, but there are no foreigners allowed here. I said, I'm sorry, what? And he was like, he's like, no foreigners allowed. And I said, why not? And he was just like, sorry, no foreigners allowed. And like, he just kept saying that and didn't really give me an explanation. So I just like kept asking. I was like, yeah, you said that, why? Well, why not? Why aren't there foreigners allowed here? And he just kept doing this, like, sorry, no foreigners allowed. And I just like felt like the spark of rage like igniting inside of me. And I like took a step back, and I told my friend, I was like, you know what? Let's just go. Because I don't want to perpetuate whatever stereotypes or whatever thing they have in their mindset about foreigners. I was like, I'm not going to be that foreigner that just re-implements whatever stereotypes they have. Like, I'm not going to give them a hard time about it. It's like, if you don't want foreigners, then fine. Like, you just won't have my business anymore. And I called him out on it. I was like, I was here 2 weeks ago. What's the issue? And he just kept saying the same thing. So that's what was really getting to me.
I've heard this a few times well. And just like what you said, because my reaction to just hearing someone relay that to me is like, we're living in like 2019.
Yes.
Like, it's like you're going all the way back to 1950, 1940, America or something.
Yeah, I was like, did something happen? Like, did something happen that you don't want foreigners allowed here anymore? But the most ironic thing was, they only played American hip hop at that place.
Like, I just had this conversation like just
only
now.
American hip hop.
I was just having this conversation. The artists are foreigners.
Yes.
You're bumping some American hip hop that almost all of them are black. but black people or foreigners are not allowed in.
And immediately I told one of my friends about it, and she was just like, you need to go back in there and like videotape the place and like whatnot, but this isn't America. You can't do that. If I do that in Korea, I could get in trouble because it could be like libel.
Yeah, they said the defamation laws here are kind of strict or something like that.
Yeah, I understand that I am an ambassador for foreigners in Korea. Like I feel that way. Like I should not act rowdy. I should not act out of character. Treat people with decency. But it is not my job to educate you. That's how I feel. It is not my job to educate you about your ignorance. So I kind of just was like, okay, like, all right, dude. Like if you have it, you win, whatever. It's fine.
So many times, like, trust me, like, I don't know, like my take is like, I'm like, that's wrong.
Yes.
If someone is coming in and they're being rowdy, I understand. You're like, okay, you know what? For the sake of the other patrons, please leave.
Yes.
But if someone is coming in and they're behaving like a normal person, respectable, what are the grounds to kick someone out?
I also don't agree with places in Korea that don't allow Koreans in because they want foreigners to come. I don't agree with that either. There was one bar that I went to with two of my friends who are also black and Korean. We went into this place and they had some kind of deal going on where it was like at 11 p.m. if you're there, you can get a shot and get one for free. Buy one, get one free. So my friend, she asked the bartender, she was just like, hey, if we come back, can we still do the deal for the buy one, get one free? And the bartender was like, oh, it's only for Koreans. And so my friend was just like, she started speaking in Korean. My friend was just like, well, we are Korean. She was like, so we'll be back at 11 o'clock and we can get our buy one, get one free shot, okay? And the bartender, like, she had an attitude on her face, but she was just like, fine, like, that's fine. And I was just like, see, like, now why does she have to get an attitude about it? That's what I don't understand. If we identify as Korean because our moms are Korean, what's the issue with it? We're living in Korea, like, we speak Korean. I know my Korean's not perfect, but I can hold a pretty decent conversation in Korean, so.
I guess this just really rubs me the wrong way. Like every time someone communicates it to me, I get a little bit emotional because I'm just like, but I gotta like move on with the conversation. Yes. But it's something that I think some people might say it's their country, so it's like they can do whatever. But I'm like, it's just something that feels, it's just wrong.
Yeah, a lot of being here has taught me like, it is what it is, and the way you react to it is what your experience will be. So, like, yeah, it sucked that happened, but I didn't let it get me like down too much. I was just like, let's just go somewhere else. I was like, that sucks because I really liked that bar. Like the drinks were good, the music was good, but I was just like, it's fine. Like if that's what they want, then there's not much I can do about it.
Yeah. The guy's not even giving you a reason.
Yeah.
So he's like, he doesn't care. He's like, he's not even telling you why. So you're like, okay. He's like, just no. Like I'm like,
yeah,
that's it. Right?
Exactly.
Like,
that's what I was. I was like, is there like something that I should be conscientious about for myself the next time I go somewhere? Like, is there something that Koreans don't like that foreigners do that maybe I can make sure I don't do? But I mean, if you're not giving me a reason, then I can't really do anything about it. Haven't really had many instances of culture shock in Korea, but the one time that I did is very memorable because it changed my perspective on the music industry in Korea. I listen to all kinds of music. I'll listen to hip hop, R&B in America and Korea, but I went to a concert. It was a music festival with R&B and hip hop artists, Korean R&B and hip hop artists. And there was one rapper, Juno Flow. I don't know if any of you guys who are watching this might know Juno Flow, but he has a song. I don't really follow Juno Flow, but he had a song and rapping about West Side or whatever, because he's from LA, Korean American, rapping about West Side, but the Koreans in the crowd were throwing up the West Side sign, like just nonchalantly like this. And I was like, whoa, like you do not do that. Like you would get in trouble. Like someone might want to fight you or you might get shot like doing that. So when I saw that, I was just like, wow, Koreans really don't know. And so I was like,
disconnect, right?
Yeah, the disconnect. Like it's cool and everything like that, but they don't understand where it comes from. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, there's a lot of just copying going on. It's not authentic. And that's what kind of, I will still listen to some Korean hip hop, but it really took me back. And there's a lot of artists that I listened to before that I don't listen to now if I don't feel authenticity from. I went to a bar in Itaewon with a friend who's Nigerian and a friend who's also African American. And we were just standing in our own corner because I didn't want to be around a lot of people. We were just standing in the corner, and these two Korean guys came up, really broken English, and was just like, "Oh, what's up, man? You guys look so cool. Like, you guys look like you're rappers or something. You guys just look like you have swag." And I was just like, I was wearing my long padding coat, mind you guys, like the really long black coats that, I don't know, not stylish, yeah, not stylish at all. And I had on an Adidas hat. I was just so, because I have a hat on, like, and I'm black, I look like I'm a hip hop star. So
At least that was a positive.
yeah, and I just let him go on with the compliments, like, but I was just like, man, I was like, it's just, I was like, oh man, like. I was like, I can't rap to save my life. Like, if someone gave me the lyrics and were like, you life or death situation, if you can't rap this on your third try, you're gonna die. I'd be dead. So
what are your ambitions for life in Korea?
So I want to continue to learn to speak Korean better. I want to advance my Korean. And I want to keep growing as a person and learn as much about here as I can while I'm here. I don't plan to stay here forever. And it's because I miss my nieces and my nephew too much, so I gotta go home and see them grow up. But yeah, for the meantime here, just continue to grow as a person.
Okay, what's the best life advice you've received? Or is there something that drives you? Do you have a philosophy?
For me, life goes on. I think that's the best thing I've learned. And with that said, like, I've had so many ups and downs. And I've hit so many lows in Korea. But now, after accepting things how they are and learning to let things go, this is the happiest I've been in Korea since I've been in Korea. So life goes on. And no matter how bad things seem to get, just remember, like, I tell myself that the light is always darkest before the dawn. So
yeah. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your life so far? Is it the same thing, life goes on, or is it?
Life goes on, yeah, definitely. Either that or mind the gap. You don't know what people are struggling with, so don't always take things that people do or say to heart. It could just be something that's going on in their life that it just came out, and they might not have necessarily meant it. So,
what would you say is a common misconception about life in Korea?
Common misconception about life.
Like what foreigners think about Korea that is not so.
A common misconception for me is that everyone says Seoul is so much fun. It's not all that. Seoul is fun, but after you've been here, like, I'll say after you get out of your honeymoon phase, after 2 months, you're just be like, if you don't live in Seoul and you live like on the outsides of Seoul, or you live in like another province in Korea, you can do what you can do in Seoul, you can pretty much do everywhere else in any other city in Korea. So when I have friends who are like, oh, let's go to Itaewon or Hongdae this weekend, I was like, do we have to go that far? Like, can we just go out here?
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest misconception. Seoul is not all that in a bag of chips.
Okay. Do you have a favorite spot in South Korea? Somewhere that you think is a must visit?
Mokpo. Mokpo. It's on the very southwest part of South Korea. It's a pretty small city, but the views, for me, in my opinion, are some of the best views. It's like a sea town, but not many people know about it, so it's not crowded. It's not crowded, so no matter where you go, like, you have the space to like walk around and do what you want without there being too many people, and it's quiet. I don't know, I'm in love with that place. The sunset is nice there. There's a part if you go down by the beach where you can, there's not a beach, if you go down by the shore, I should say, there's like a kind of like a boardwalk thing, so you can walk across the boardwalk and whatnot, and it leads to a hike into the mountains. It's like a Yongsan, yeah, Yongsan, not Korea, not Seoul Yongsan, but Mokpo Yongsan is Dragon Mountain or Dragon Peak, because it looks like a dragon. The mountain or the rocks, I guess, looks like a dragon. So.
Yeah. Wow.
It's really cool.
Oh. Y'all see me sweating like it
Me
is
too.
hot. It is hot right now, guys. I'm telling you, like every 2 seconds, I'm just like, oh man, pause. It's like what, 1,000 degrees.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you think Korea does really well that the world can learn from?
The Wi-Fi.
The Wi-Fi.
The Wi-Fi here is so fast. Like downloading music or uploading videos onto YouTube, it just goes like that. Even in the subway, you get Wi-Fi. You have service in the Wi-Fi.
And the buses too, right?
The buses too have Wi-Fi. So I think that's one thing other countries can learn from. And recycling. Korea recycles everything. You have to recycle. Even at home, you can't just throw everything into one bag. You have certain colors for the bags and only certain things can go in this bag. And if you don't put it in the right one, the trash people will not pick it up. So, and you can get fined for it, of course.
Is there something in Korea that you think needs more media coverage?
I would have to go with mental health issues. I think in media and just society as a whole, mental health needs to be taken more seriously and not so stigmatized as it is. And the reason with that is there are so many, not so many, but there are homicides, and homicides aren't as easy here because there are strict gun laws. Guns aren't allowed, but like I was telling you a couple of months ago, someone in the south part caught an apartment complex on fire and was stabbing people as they were trying to escape the fire when they were coming out of the building. And so I think 6 or 7 people died in that, and people were just like, oh, that man is crazy and whatnot, but there's an underlying issue. What drove him to that? And so I feel like proactiveness on those kinds of mental health issues would probably benefit the society in Korea as a whole and the world.
If you could change one thing in the world, what would it be?
If I could change one thing in the world, it would definitely be, I guess politicians and policymakers would take climate change and global warming more seriously. And since I work with kids and I adore my nieces and my nephews so much, I just feel like it would be a shame for them to be in their youth as adults and not have to worry about when's the next time they can get fresh water, or when how hot the temperature is getting in the globe as a whole, and more extreme weather conditions. I would hate for them to have to suffer because of that when they get older.
Who is one person, dead or alive, that you'd like to sit down and have a chat with for an hour, or dinner, or a drink?
Anyone?
Yeah, dead or alive, anybody.
That would have to be my grandmother on my dad's side. My reason for that is she passed away, but she's very wise, and for me being here in Korea and learning so much about myself as a person, I feel like I could use a conversation with her just to tell her how much I've changed and how much I've grown, but also to ask her for advice on some things, just because there are some things I could only go to her for when I was growing up. A lot of people say they're mama's boys or something like that. No, I was a grandmama's boy. I adored her, and just the way things left off before she passed away, I felt like I didn't get to say goodbye, and so I just wish I could get to say goodbye and then have that conversation with her, ask her for advice about life going forward from now and how old I am now.
What's one message that you want to send to the world?
It would definitely have to be what I said earlier, is mind the gap. That's what I would tell everyone, mind the gap. Everyone is going through something, and I feel like if someone says something or does you wrong, it may not necessarily because they intentionally did it, and maybe they did, but just mind the gap, because there might be something that they're struggling with internally, and that's just how they know how to deal with it. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but just taking that into consideration to try to understand where certain feelings or where certain actions are coming from. I think that's the best advice, so that people aren't really stressed out about their friendships or relationships and whatnot. Just mind the gap.
What do you think is the general attitude towards black people in South Korea?
Koreans think that black people are cool. I think that's the general. For people who are around our age, they think that black people are really cool, and typical stereotypes, good at things that deal with music and sports. And I had a friend I'm no longer friends with, but who would use a term like 흑형 or 흑누나. I don't know if anyone has ever explained those on this channel. But really quick, 흑형 and 흑누나, you guys know 언니, 누나, 오빠, those kinds of things. But it's just 흑 means black. So if someone's calling you 흑누나, 흑형, 흑 오빠, whatever, they're just calling you black brother or sister, like your black friend. But and I've had multiple Koreans explain it to me because I don't like the term, just because I say, why are you reiterating something that's already obvious? And they don't have a term for white people. They don't say 백형 or 백누나. So don't use it for black people if you're not going to use it for everyone else. But they said it's because you know when someone is black. That's what I have been explaining. Like, black people have a certain swagger about them, or have a certain energy about them that you just know. Like, if you hear someone talk, that's what they told me. If you hear someone talk, you usually can tell if they're black, or if they sing, you know that they're black. If someone's dancing, you can tell that they're black because it's, I guess, in them, like it's ingrained in them. That's what I have been told. And so that's what I know that Koreans think about black people. Yeah, and of course there is the older people with the racism. Like, oh, they're gonna rob me. So I have sat on the subway and people have gotten up and moved to another spot, which is fine because I don't like sitting next to people on the subway anyway.
So how has your overall experience being a foreigner been in Korea? Do people see you and visibly see you as black, or they just say foreigner?
I think they just see me as a foreigner. I think a lot of people still see me as Southeast Asian. But if I'm with foreigner friends, people assume that I don't speak Korean. But if I'm with Korean friends, people speak to me in Korean.
I see.
I don't know if it's because they can see it if I'm with Koreans, but if I'm with Koreans, they're just like, oh, there's no possible way they're all speaking English. So,
what's the funniest thing that you've experienced as a foreigner or a black person in Korea? Is there anything that happened to you because of the way you look that you think was funny?
Funniest thing. I don't think it's really that funny, but a lot of the times people are so like into their phones, if I walk past someone and they like look up and they do a double take, and I think that's funny because they'll like look and then they'll like do that, like, oh, like he's not Korean, or I'll walk by. People have like vocally said like, oh, 깜짝이야, like, oh, scared me, like, oh shit. So I think that's the funniest thing.
Do you say something back?
I just like smile, yeah, laugh. There are people who are really nice to me too. Like, they'll just be like, oh, you're so. What is the word in English? You're so. See, this is one thing about living here. I keep forgetting words in English. I'm so.
Like what, jovial or
respectful. I guess that's the word. I'm so respectful, and so some people are like treat me really well. So some people are kind of just like, oh, he's a foreigner, like, but some people treat me really well, and some people actually do welcome me like into Korean culture. I have it's funny. One of my co-teachers who I teach with, I showed them some video that was in their book, and there's a black kid in the book, and some of the kids like lost their minds, like were like giggling and like making jokes and stuff like that, and I had asked a comprehension question, and none of the students could answer, and my co-teacher called them out, and she was like scolding them in Korean, and she was just like, you guys don't know the answer, do you? And she's like, because you saw a black kid and you thought it was funny. She was like, you guys are just making jokes. She was like, that's why you guys don't know. She was like, just because he's black, you don't have to point it out. Like, so focus. She was like, just pay attention to the lesson. It's not that big of a deal. And there's another teacher at my school who we had some kind of hiking event with the kids where the parents could come and they could go hiking, and the principal introduced me as the foreigner English teacher. And one of the teachers who I talked to, she like was just like, he's not a foreigner, and I was just like, I appreciate those kinds of things. And I also showed her a video of I can't remember the name of the channel. I think it's called Yes Theory. They did a video where one of the guys came to Korea, no money, no nothing, and had to ask people for money to buy him food and stuff like that, and ultimately find a place to stay. I think he's French American, so he's white.
I know the channel.
Yeah. So I showed that to the teacher, and she's watching it, and she's like, wow, that's so amazing. And she was just like, But that only happened because he's white. And I was just like, oh, she knows. So I was like, she knows. And she was like, because she was like, Korea, she's like, I admit Korea does have some kind of racism. She was like, if it were like someone who's black or someone who's from like Southeast Asia, she was like, they would not, no one would let them stay in their house like that. And I was just like, yeah, I was like, and I told her, I said, I feel like even if it were another Korean, Koreans wouldn't be that nice. And she was like, so, I hate to put it this way, but in Korean society, not people as a whole, but society places white people on a pedestal in an aspect. At least that's how I see it. Because if you look at it in the media, most people who are famous, who are not Korean, have a lighter complexion. And even like, there are like K-pop stars who are mixed with Korean, they're mixed with some kind of white ethnicity. There are black and Korean artists that I know, but they are, again, of lighter complexion. I don't think I've ever seen, I don't think I've ever seen anyone like this color or darker really, really famous for being like, just being themselves. The only one who I know of nowadays is Han Hyun-min. He's a half Nigerian, half Korean model who grew up in Korea, who only speaks Korean.
Isn't there another guy that's like Sam something? That's
Okoi? No, he is famous, and he's one of the very few. And it's like, that's what I think is like very strange though. It's like, why is it one of the few? Because when people hear like someone who's famous who's black, that's the first person they think of is him.
Yeah.
That's the only person that they know who's famous in Korea who's black. So, but if you like say like a white famous person, there are multiple white famous people in Korea. So.
Is there something about being like half that people who are not don't realize?
Just that people who are half Korean actually do know Korean culture and understand it and can sympathize and empathize with it. We're not completely ignorant about it. And so one of my pet peeves is people will try to teach me things about Korean culture that I already know. There are very few things that I don't know about Korean culture. Like, I know so much about it. And so when I tell people that and they still try to teach me about it, it's kind of just like, yeah, thank you. So, but I guess they're just not used to having a friend who looks different, but culturally can understand.
It's the same, pretty much, right?
So that's where I tell people just see color. People just see color.
Any advice for black people who are coming to Korea to visit or work? Any advice for them?
I would say yes. Be worried, but be worried in a good way. Don't be so worried that you're closed-minded about experiencing new things, because I know so many people who have come here and they just assume automatically it's racism. It might not necessarily be that. It could just be that the people who are, like I said earlier, are just ignorant about it and they don't know better. So rather than getting offended, try to take it as an opportunity to educate. But I also said that educating is not your job. So if you don't want to educate, just take it as a moment to learn that not all people know. Some people just don't know. So don't take offense to a lot of things when you come here. That's my advice. Now, if you're really good at reading people and you can tell, like, okay, have your wits about you, but I would say be open-minded, because I know people, I've seen comments on videos and things like, people are like, oh, do I need to worry about this? Do I need to worry about that? And it's just like, you really don't need to worry about those things. It's just people, like I said, it's the way you react to things. The way people react to things. And so for them, it might feel like it was a racial thing, or they might feel like someone was actually being hostile towards them. But if you're like, whatever, dude, like, and you don't let it bother you, you'll have the best time of your life in Korea. So,
where can people find you online?
My Instagram is okazay. It's okazay_. I mostly just use Instagram.
Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to share your story or have us visit your region, send us a message on any of our social media platforms or via our website.